Hello class, and welcome to the lecture for Module 5 on implementation and evaluation. In this lecture I'm going to try to keep it condensed and short and just highlight some of the key points here, so as you go through the soft chalk lesson you have a good overview of what to expect. So let's go ahead and get started. As usual, we'll start with the andragogy model, and for this week we're looking at those three goals and purposes for learning when we look at the institutional growth, individual growth, and societal growth. And depending on what one we're using or what the purpose is, it will influence what type of implementation strategy we use and how we go about actually implementing our curriculum. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about implementation. So what do we really need to consider? Well, we need to think about what's available to us as far as what is available to us, what methods are available to us to ensure that the learning is relevant and that the learnings are stimulated and involved in the learning. And that's the challenge. That's the context that we have to look at. For Athens State, there are certain materials and methods available that we have to consider. And obviously for this, one of them is that it's an online course, and I need to consider that. I also need to think about the needs of the students and the objectives for the course. And at Athens State, those objectives are determined by the instructor, but if you're in training and development, those objectives might be determined by somebody else, and that kind of is the purpose of the training program or training session, and everything needs to be implemented to address those issues. So looking down at some more considerations, and these are all things that we need to think about when actually implementing our curriculum, our instructional strategy, whatever it may be. And all of these are going to vary depending on where you're at and what is available to you. Finally, on the implementation, I've included this article I came across, which is will be included in the assignment as part of the assignment. And what it talks about are these 5 principles that need to be addressed to determine whether or not a training program, a course was implemented correctly. And it starts off with clarity. Was it easy to follow and understand? And I'm sure you all are in online courses and you'll get to assess this course, but there's nothing more frustrating than when you don't know what is expected out of you from week to week. When I started my master's program, I took 5 online courses. I had never taken an online course before, and this was several years ago. I just felt lost. I had no idea what I was doing, no idea what was expected out of me. So it's important to have that. Fairness is also important. Is it fair? Do you feel like you're being treated equally? What about the interest? Is it appealing? Are you curious in what you're learning? Is it relevant? And is it support? Are there resources available to you? And when we look back on our 6 principles, all of those relate to those 6 principles of andragogy, that adult learning model, and should be woven into the curriculum and should be addressed in the curriculum. Now, obviously, they're not always going to be, and it's a constant, constantly adapting to meet those criteria. So this goes into just a little more detail about each of them, and it's really, I do think it provides a good insight into the implementation process. Next, we're going to look at evaluation. So when we think about evaluation, I have a definition here for you. There's 2 really forms of evaluation I consider. You have your course or the instructor, as far as the quality of course, the materials, the instructor. Then you also have the student, and that's where we'll get into with the next module, looking more at assessment as far as that go. With evaluation, same as what you would think in education, you have the formative and summative approaches or methods, and that formative is throughout the learning process, and then again the summative is at the end. And when you think about it, when you're evaluating a training program or a course, you're looking at, again, was it beneficial? Then we also look at any evaluation tool that we would use to determine whether or not a course was effective, a instructional strategy was effective, would be reliability and validity. So I have a definition here. I got a short video here that does a really good job explaining it. That's definitely tied into statistics, but it's important to know any assessment, and you all are in education and understand how any assessment you make needs to be reliable and it needs to be valid in order to be effective. I came across this evaluation checklist, and again, this will be used in our assignment as well. I found it interesting. Do I agree with every one of them? No, but I definitely think they make some good points. And the checklist is designed to evaluate whether or not a employee learning experience was successful. It can be used in education as well, and it's just a list of criterion that you can use to evaluate it. Now, like I said, it's not perfect, but it's certainly things we need to consider when actually developing a course, and when we actually evaluate it, we can definitely get insight from each of these questions. And like I said, you'll get the opportunity to use those in your evaluation of this course. A major evaluation model it's used more in training and development, but I definitely think it can apply to education, is Kirkpatrick's training evaluation model. And with that, there are 4 levels to it. And the whole purpose of this, again, is to measure the effectiveness of training. And as you see here are the 4 levels. It starts at the very basic, looking at to what degree participants react favorably to the learning environment. So basically, when it's a training session's over, a course is over, the first thing that you look at is, okay, did the participants enjoy the actual course? Next thing it looks at, to what degree did they acquire new knowledge? And that's where you start looking at different tests and the summative test. And then you move to behavior. Are they able to actually apply what they learn? And then finally, the results, where you look at down the road, and are the results different? Now, in education, this is a little more challenging. Obviously, we can do student reaction to get the reaction level. We can have tests, those type of things, to determine whether or not they learn the material. For behavior, applying it on a job, you would have to look 2 or 3 years down the road, and are they able to apply what they learned? And then finally, the results down the road, what was the impact of the training? Were there results? Could you see them? Now, you can obviously see how this would be very effective in the workplace, where you could hold your training session, you could get the reaction of the students, you could test them to see if they learned the material, you could see them actually applying what they learned. Imagine if you were if you had an in-house welding session. You could go, did they enjoy the session? Did they learn anything using a test? The behavior, you could see, did they apply what they learned? And then the results down the road. Did this cut costs? Did this improve efficiency? Whatever it may be. And as they talk about in the accompanying article, it's a great approach to take. It can be expensive and very time-consuming, but it's definitely a good way to determine whether or not the program was effective. And this is important in education, because as we see this move in higher education towards more value for your dollar as you learn, evaluation is important to determine whether or not a program is effective. They're still debating how best to evaluate programs or courses, but definitely in training and development, when companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars on training and development programs, they want to know whether or not these work. And it can be difficult to see what that return on investment is, but these different evaluation approaches can assist with that. And just scroll down through this article. Again, this is a good article. What I like about it is it talks about how you can apply each of these to a specific situation. And that is our lecture this week. If you guys have any questions about it, please let me know. Let's hope the audio works this time on the first time.